Stand like Stone Cold with a few beers. Play the game, I end the game. I'm champion, I'm Triple H. Undertaker, I'm your maker. Bury the brother like Kane. Ooh, 1-3, hit the tombstone, hit the choke slam on face. Ooh, yeah, like a macho heel, tell like I'm muscle. If you suffer like tomatoes, I'ma keep a couple models. Ooh, and you may call me HBK. When I'm tuning up the vein, you best be getting in my way. Ooh, yeah, I'm degenerate, I love it, yes, I love it. If you wait down with that, then I got two words for you, suck it. Too sweet, too sweet.
Welcome everyone to your longest running Australian wrestling podcast and number one in the Philippines on Apple Podcasts for wrestling, Wrestle Radio Australia. I'm your host, Todd Eastman. It is good to be back. Had a nice week off, just had to sort of recharge the batteries. I looked up on the I never get that right. I looked up on the board there and sort of counted, and I've done like 26 weeks straight where I hadn't had a break, and not only that, there were some weeks where I'd done double episodes and that sort of deal. So I sort of just wanted to have a week off and recharge the old batteries, and so I'm glad to be back. I wish I could be back under better circumstances. Of course, around the country we're getting slammed by the Delta strain of COVID, and I'm not talking Delta Brady. I'm talking the it's a much meaner, if that's possible, thing that has pretty much shut down all wrestling, I guess, for the time being until these lockdowns, and hopefully we get everything under control and we can get back to what we've been surging towards doing, which was there's some great wrestling going on all around the country, and hopefully we can get this out of the way and we can get back to doing it. And for those of you that are struggling with this whole lockdown thing, just know you guys aren't alone. We're all in this together, and we're all going to get through this together, and we're all get back to doing what we love very, very soon. One of the guys definitely affected by this lockdown, this recent lockdown anyway, is my guest this week, the IWA Heavyweight Champion Jackson Kelly. He had a big show coming up this weekend where he was going to be defending against Royce Chambers, and that would have been a great matchup because of just the two contrasting styles. So we talk about that and a whole lot more. I love the whole idea of IWA, the touring schedule that they do, and all of that sort of stuff. I'm very jealous of their tours, and we talk about that, all that, and a whole lot more. So I don't want to spoil it. So we'll be back. Oh, before I do, I'll just, because I wanted to say this before, and I say a little bit on the show, but in the interview, but I just want to say it. Jackson Kelly is one of those guys that is so very underrated in Australian wrestling. He's not one of the guys that, when you talk about some of the best workers in the country, immediately come to mind. And it is probably because, and I don't know why, because IWA is a very popular federation. If you talk in terms of crowds drawn around the country or crowds drawn around the area, they are probably, if you break it out over the averages, the highest drawing Australian promotion going today. And I really don't understand why we don't hear more or see more about IWA. Of course, you can follow, if you want to go on and check out their shows online. They are online on IWA On Demand. Just type that into your Google search and you'll find them. Go and check out some of their shows. You'll see what I mean. Guys like Jackson Kelly, Headhunter Rig, Cowboy Chris Abbott, Randall, some great names there. And you probably don't see them all that often. You see Rig on Newcastle, Newey Pro, and you also see Jackson on Newey Pro. But there are a couple of guys there that pretty much only work IWA, and I wish they would work in more places so more of the country gets to see them, but they're quite happy where they are, and to each their own. So we talk about all of that with Jackson Kelly, and we'll cover that right after this, right here on Wrestle Radio Australia. It's good to be back. Current IWA heavyweight champ, Australian heavyweight champion, Jackson Kelly. How are you tonight, mate? Thank you for coming on.
Not bad, Todd. How are you?
Yeah, trying to deal with stuff as it's happening at the moment. Every hour it's a different thing, and we're all, I suppose this is our new, what they call it. They call it like the COVID normal now. We have to get used to it.
New normal. Yep.
Yeah.
New normal. We're all just I guess slaves to the numbers now, aren't we? We gotta wait for the new updates I don't know what it is for you, but every day for us it's 11 a.m. I'm listening to the radio and seeing what's being imposed on us next. But unfortunately, it has sent some shockwaves through the Australian wrestling world, which is unfortunate. but it is what it is.
Because even though like with you guys with IWA, because you sort of traveled the sort of like the whole of like country New South Wales sort of deal, being that a lot of your roster would be from like the affected areas, you're still affected anyway, aren't you?
Yep, no doubt. I could be wrong, but this is the first time that regional New South Wales has had restrictions put on them. So therefore any shows that we have coming up in regional New South Wales is obviously all off because most of us are from Sydney and Newcastle and other sort of coastal areas. So like you'd think that maybe that would be a little bit of a pass for us to maybe get something going out in these towns that we do often, but unfortunately it's not even, that's not even an option at this point.
I suppose it's always better to be safe than, because the last thing you want is for one of your guys to accidentally be say like not showing any symptoms but carried up there, and next thing you know that whole town's
yeah, that's not great PR for,
no, it's probably not the best,
and it's champion, so
yeah,
we're not gonna let that happen.
I always sort of wondered about that. I think when it very first time it hit, like when it first started, and I was helping out with Australian Wrestling League up here in Brisbane, and it was the day that the NBA cancelled their season or suspended their season, and I sort of messaged the boys and was like, we need to look at maybe cancelling this next show, and they're like, no, it's not going to affect us. I said, well, whether or not it does affect us, do you want to be known as one of the hot spots that happened to spread it out from like anyone that was attending the AWL show at blah blah blah? You're like, oh.
And it's a good call from you at that time, because I remember NBA, I think, I could be wrong because it was a long time ago now, but that was one of the first ones to really pull the pin, and that was huge news when it happened at the time. So to even sort of have the foresight to be like, hey, like this is huge, this is a big deal. No one wants to be, because you hear, like we watch the news now and we see or hear about, you know, certain people and their movings, and it is unfortunate, but you just don't want to be put in that category or put on that list, or even have your name or company be on the news for the wrong reasons. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And really the only reason I said it is because I was thinking to myself, that's a multi-billion-dollar company. If they're going to cut it out, like there has to be it's going to be bigger than what
they know something.
Exactly. They know something we don't.
Yep.
So I guess it's really because you're also with Newey Pro. You work the Newey Pro shows. So everything at the moment is just sort of, you're on a wait and see, I guess, until what? Because
that's right.
Sydney's the one that's been hit sort of hard this time, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, Sydney is. I'm not going to rattle off the numbers, but I know it's sort of started back up in Bondi, which is pretty close to where IWA was going to have their next show next Friday night. It was going to be at the Juniors, which is sort of in the South Sydney area, Kingsford area, which is quite close to Bondi for those who aren't from Sydney. So as soon as I heard the news and heard that it was Bondi and that it was growing, I just sort of that crappy feeling was like, oh, okay, well, it's just looking unlikely now. And now that it has grown to, to the extent that it has across Sydney, it just made the Newcastle show, which was the following day on the Saturday, up there for Newey Pro. It made that feel a little bit less likely. And then I wake up today to hear that Newey Pro had rightfully cancelled that event, just not risking anything. I could be wrong. Again, I could be wrong, but I don't think Newey has a lockdown per se. But it's the right, like a lot of us are from Sydney. None of us are going to risk. We're not allowed to go up there. So yeah, unfortunately, next weekend, which was a weekend I was looking very much forward to, is postponed. Let's say, I was going to say cancelled, postponed. Hopefully we get them all running up soon.
And that's like, at least I will say one thing, at least now, because everyone's in sort of the same boat. A lot of these venues that you guys are working with you. Do you know what I mean? Instead of being like, well, you lose your deposit, you blah, 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 we can't help you, sorry. They're sort of like, no, we're working with you. Don't worry about this because we know we have to sort of planned for this sort of stuff to happen. So
yeah,
it's so much. I'm so glad that that's happened, because it could have easily been for a lot of the places. And I'm not just talking for you guys. I'm talking around the country. They could have been like, oh well, stiff shit. Sorry, we got your deposit. That's it.
yeah,
You're done.
Yep. No,
And
you're right. You're right. I think the good venues are sort of working with us because they want that's their meal ticket as well. So I think that there has when we've started running. Sorry, when we started back up and running with this stuff, I think there has been a certain hesitation, especially for some of the because IWA has a lot of venues across New South Wales. I think I know I'm not involved in this, but I think there may have been some hesitation to just wait and see before they book something in for reasons like this.
yeah,
But yeah, look, it's such a shame. But you are right. Like these venues, I think that I actually saw a post from the Kingsford Juniors. They're pretty on the forefront with it. They said, look, all your tickets are going to remain valid. We're going to do our best to see this through and make sure that all your events that you've booked tickets for, we're going to honor those in the future. Hopefully, fingers crossed.
yeah, that's good. Yeah, well, I mean, it's gonna settle down again. It's just a matter of you have to stay inside and check this thing out, I guess, is the way to say it. There's nothing else you can. That's the worst part about it. There's nothing else we can do about it until there's sort of a thing where the over a certain amount of number of people are vaccinated.
Yeah.
It's the thing, because the worst part about it is, I didn't realize it till I sort of read up on, because you want to be a bit smarter about the vaccine, and people talk all this shit. So I thought, I'll just try and read up on it. And it doesn't so much stop you from getting it; it just stops you from getting really sick if you do have it. So you can.
I think it was almost like it does stop people from dying. I think, which is good.
But you can have it and not be affected by it, but you can be passing it on to other people without knowing it.
Yeah, who will eventually be affected by it.
Yeah, because you're vaccinated. You're not getting any of the effects of it, but it's more the worry about other people to do it. So I guess we just have to wait until hopefully the government work themselves out with a proper plan of vaccination. I mean, that's the only thing I think where the Australian government, states and national governments have really dropped the ball on that, because when it came to quelling it and quelling the outbreaks, they've been, on the most part, really good at it. It's the rollout of the vaccines is where they've really been lax in. And I don't know if it's the fact they thought, well, we're dealing with the cases so well, we can sort of work out these vaccines, slowly roll them out. And then this new strain's come along and went, nah, bugger that, mate. You need to get them out.
Yeah, it's a bit of a spanner in the works.
Yeah. So anyway, I know we brought that up because I suppose it's front of mind at the moment.
It is relevant. Yeah. Unfortunately.
Yeah. But I want to talk about you because you're one of those guys, and I think I've said it about other people, because it's like I was talking this week to Sebastian Mattis, who that'll be up in a couple of weeks on the show, and we were talking about he worked a guy called Mike Boomer in Adelaide, and Mike's one of those guys, I almost categorize him sort of like you, where a really, really good worker that not a lot of the country knows about, and I'm not entirely sure why, because you're like one of the premier workers around the country, just don't get seen by a hell of a lot of people around the country. That's something you sort of does it frustrate you at all, or is it something you really want to work on, or?
I mean, look, to be honest, it would have frustrated me a few years ago. I think the way that I perceive myself and wrestling, and to extend upon that, myself in wrestling, I think it's less about notoriety for me. This is just me personally. It's less about notoriety and fame for whatever level that whatever fame means in Australian wrestling, and it's more about having the respect of my peers and the people that I work with, honoring them to do what's right by them, their company, their characters, who I work with. So if I am someone who I don't know. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I guess underrated or under like not as not talked about.
Yeah.
That's fine by me. I don't need. I'm not like, it's partly my doing because I'm not someone who, at least now, I'm not someone who puts myself out there and demands to be seen, which is sort of something that a wrestler shouldn't say.
It sort of goes against the ethos of most professional wrestling.
Look, it sort of does, but at the same time, I love professional wrestling and I wouldn't do it if I didn't. I just want to do right by the companies that I work for and ensure that the paying crowd has a good night. And that's sort of what drives me to contribute these days.
And let's talk about the sort of the evolution of your character, because for a while there it was the long hair with the hat and the beach bum Buddha, and now you've sort of moved more into almost heading towards Sam Osborne-ish look to you, with the polo shirts and the sensible haircut and all of that. Is that just another thing of sort of like just turning it up as you move forward and just changing the character slightly so it doesn't get stale? Or
I think it is. I think it's just a natural evolution of my character and myself as a human being. I like 3 or 4 years ago when I had the long hair and I was wearing the bucket hat. I was living on the northern beaches of Sydney. I was very close to Manly and was always there most every week, going to the beach, doing those things. That was who I am, and I used that as a character to get over in front of the crowds that I was in front of. And if you heard me talking 2 or 3 years ago, I'd tell you how fun it was to perform for these regional crowds when you say that, oh, he's from Manly, and then you come out with long blonde hair and the stupid looking bucket hat and the sunglasses and your wrestling trunks, which look like budgie smugglers. That whole presentation just worked whenever you weren't in Manly. And then when I was performing for the Northern Beaches crowd, which we do at the WRSL every few, done that 3 times now. They love me. I'm the goodest of all guys. So just playing off that geographical sort of character as well. But I think now, look, there hasn't really been any sort of grand plan or master strategy for me to sort of change things up. I sort of went through COVID and cut the hair because I wasn't wrestling. I was sick of the long hair. It's hard to maintain when you don't know how to maintain it, because I'm a red-blooded male. I have no idea how to maintain long hair. So it just got to me. I just cut it, and now, yeah, you're right. The connection to Sam Osborne is there because me, Sam, Will Keatis, and Lucci, we're repping the North Shore of Sydney now. So that Mossman and Manly connection, and we're it's sort of a bit one and the same, and just trying to figure out what's next for my character.
I was sort of surprised because it looks a lot like the North Shore Wrestling group are sort of now forming somewhat in PWA, that I haven't seen you sort of work your way into there yet. Is that something that you want to do something? Because I know you're busy a lot with IWA and you're also with Nui Pro, but is like PWA also a place that you'd love to go there, of course, but is it something that you'd like to do to hook up with those boys again and use that sort of gimmick in that environment?
I think so. I'm not going to say no. I just think it's whatever the company needs, and however the story needs to be told. If I'm a part of that story, if I'm not part of that story, that's I guess that's, in a way, that's up to me, but it's also not up to me. So I think I'd love to, because obviously the connection, you can see from afar the connection between Nui Pro, PWA, IWA. These congruent companies, if you will. The connection's easy to see. Whether it happens or not, we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, because it's funny because every time I talk to anyone that works with IWA. Like I've talked to Rig not too long ago, Chief. And like I love the idea of like doing those when you do those like week-long stretches over like the holidays where you're traveling from town to town. And I love the idea of that. It's like I think I don't know if I told him on here, but after I was like, I'm so jealous of that, because that to me is just what wrestling used to be. Like because I'm an old head, so I love all the old Memphis wrestling and all of that. This is the idea of like when you hear them talk, oh, we went to Shreveport, then we went to blah blah, then we went to da. That was over a 3. Like that's something that I'd love to do over the course of a week. How much fun is it for you guys as a group to do those tours?
It is. I can't put into words how much fun it is. Obviously, pulling back the curtain. As a group, like the guys and girls involved on those tours, we all get along so well. And even if someone newer were to come in, be brought in on that tour, like immediately, they'll get it and they'll be part of the crew too. So you're right. I'm an old head too. I respect what wrestling was and what it should be, I guess. I guess I shouldn't say what it should be, because in the Australian market, it is sort of hard to do that frequently. But you're right. Like traditionally for IWA, there is that summer tour in the January school holidays. And we had we were going to have 4 dates. We had 3 dates this past January, and it's just a blast. Like you're right. Like you travel from town to town. You're on the road 2 or 3 hours a day, and then you're there setting up the ring, getting to see the town a little bit, putting on a show for the fans who get to see wrestling once a year, and they just turn up and they love it, and we love it too. So it's honestly something that I look forward to. Each and every year, and then throughout the year, fingers crossed for this year, we're going to get to do a couple more tours, which may not be announced as of right now. So I'll leave that. I'll leave that in the ether.
And I only really bring it up because it was like 2 weeks ago I worked Wide Bay Pro Wrestling, which is like it's in Maryborough, Queensland, which is for me it's a 4-hour drive.
Yeah.
So it was like I drove 2 hours, picked up the guy that I managed, Jake Nova, and then we drove the other 2 hours for the thing. And then on the way back, we had Brooksy in the car with us. And it's just, I think those trips when there's like just a couple of guys in there just talking wrestling when you're in the car, you learn so much, and you also you get so many ideas amongst you. And it's just something that I love. It's just the idea of it is just, I guess it's romantic until you probably, like the guys in America, when you're out there doing it for like 21 days, it probably gets a bit much. But
but they find their ways around it, and like for us, it's our little version of that. And like you said, like it is romantic, and when we get the chance to do it, which isn't often, it does feel like that. So it's really awesome for us to be a part of, and I always make sure to put my name down for that, because I want to be part of those tours, man.
When you're working those country towns, is there a sort of like you go into some towns and like these guys aren't going to get this the say gift style wrestling. Let's go back to the old school, like holds and like working a crowd and that sort of deal.
Oh, 100%. That's sort of, well, first of all, that's how I wrestle. So that helps. And that's probably the reason why that's how I wrestle, because you have to, in front of these crowds there, you have to sort of take things back to level 1 in a sense, which sounds easy, but a lot of, it can be hard for a lot of guys who, might be over somewhere, and then they come up and they're in front of a virgin crowd where they don't know who they are, and they've got those first 3 seconds to make an impression, and then they've got to tell their story from the ground up. That's a skill in itself, and I've done enough of those shows now to A, realize that, and B, implement things from time to time, which I think, you know, it's the old, you've heard it a million times, wrestlers say it a million times, you throw shit against the wall and see what sticks. Like, I feel as if I have some sort of understanding now where I can be, okay, well, we're in this town, and, you know, you listen to the first roar of the crowd and be like, okay, it's mostly kids. Like, let's do what's going to entertain them tonight, because that's essentially your job for the night.
Mm. And I can't remember off the top of my head. Is this the first time you've been the IWA champion, or is it?
Yep.
It was, yes. I thought so. It's not as much.
Yep.
Yeah, because it was Chris Abbott had it for the longest time, didn't he?
Yeah, about 904 days, I'm pretty sure. COVID helped him out a bit on that one, but still, he had it for a long time, and many defenses across many towns. So yeah, he was a very good champion.
Yeah, I had it's a funny thing, because I actually had I was talking to someone from PWI this week, and they're starting to compile the PWI 500.
Yep.
And so he was saying, oh, so who are the wrestlers that stand out and blah, blah, blah. And so I gave him a list of guys. He goes, and who's had really long title reigns? I was like, mate, everyone's had long title reigns. It's fucking, what do you think, mate? He's just,
add 400 days to everyone's reign.
Yeah. It's like Rocky Monero got away with it in Riot City because he didn't wrestle for a year.
Yep. Perfect. This counts.
But how much of an honor is it for you to finally get that sort of seal of approval from the company to say you're the guy we want to sort of lead the company forward for the next however days?
It means a lot, because so I've been working towards that for a long time, and I think, despite, you know, me and Chris, we've had our we've had plenty of matches across you know, the different towns and whatnot, and there's plenty of stories out there and content out there which will back that up. But, you know, we've battled for the Trans Tasman Championship, which is the mid card championship, if you will, and then we had a few matches for the heavyweight championship, and I finally got the chance to come out victorious. So it has sort of been a long time coming, and I guess I have my idea of how I want to be a champion for the company that has done so much for me and given me all these opportunities to have the stage that I have all across New South Wales. So I just want to do my best to sort of honor what the company stands for, and honor what wrestling stands for, and where IWA fits in with professional wrestling in Australia. And I'm just so bummed that I miss out on my first chance to do that next Friday.
Yeah.
So, but look, that was going to be the first chapter of it. I will get another chance, I know, but positive thinking. I'm just glad to finally hold the championship, as you say, and be known as the heavyweight champion of IWA.
It surprised me you said that Chris had the title for so long, because I guess my booking philosophy has always been sort of the money is in the chase. So it's always been like baby faces get the title, but they don't get the title for too long. It's usually the heel gets the title, and the money is in like wanting to see that baby face get up. Is it is it more because you're traveling to different areas all the time that the babyface champion sort of works more, or is it just a philosophy sort of thing?
Yeah, it could be a bit of a babyface territory, but yeah, it just sort of is what it is. The same thing with like Chris earned that. You know, for a long time he was working his way up and putting on a lot of good matches. He held the Trans Tasman Championship for a long time there before his heavyweight championship run. So he did it the hard way as well. I'm not sure, you know, babyface, heel. You can sort of get away with, and I sort of trust my abilities to do this, but you can sort of get away with doing a bit of both for IWA, if that makes sense. So on certain nights, in the right context, you know, you might play a different role. So I think in saying that, because of my character and the way I explained it before, I'm a heel most of the time. So as a heel champion, it's
yeah, you're right. It's the thrill is in the chase. But I think Chris, as a babyface champion, especially being a cowboy character, that definitely resonates for a lot of the regional crowds that we talked about previously. So that helped him, and that helps IWA when you're trying to put together a card and have the ultimate victor be someone who stereotypically might relate to the audience in regional Australia.
Yeah,
that's not offensive. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he's another one too. One of those guys that you just don't really hear about when everyone talks about the top wrestlers around the country. Guys like you and him, their names don't come up, which is it's surprising for me because most of the time, well, a lot of the time I talk about there being like a sort of like a lower East Coast bias when you're talking about, when they talk about the best wrestlers in the country, they go, oh, this guy from Melbourne, this guy from Sydney, this guy from blah, blah. It's never really the Adelaide guys or the Perth guys, or even is not that many promotions as they are up here, the Queensland guys. It's always sort of like the Sydney, Melbourne sort of guys that they always talk about as the best. And being that you guys are a New South Wales based promotion, I'm surprised that we don't hear more of like yourself, a Chris Abbott, Randall, those guys that I suppose that you primarily work the IWA territory. So maybe that's why. I'm not too sure. But you guys,
it might be why. Yeah, it might have to do with who's talking, who they are. I'm not sure. I've sort of distanced myself from a lot of what is being said about Australian wrestling and just more focusing on performing at the shows that I'm on. So look, whoever they are and whoever is talking, they can talk as much as they want. I recently just got off Twitter, so I was just sort of sick of what everyone was saying. A lot of opinions being thrown around. Like it is what it is. It's great, but at the end of the day, like it comes back to a sort of that footy mentality that I grew up on. Like you just get tunnel vision sometimes, and you don't want to listen to what other people are saying, and you just keep doing our thing. And I'm telling you, look, IWA is premier promotion here in Australia, longest running promotion in Australia. If we're not being talked about, then so be it. But we know what we do, and we know the crowds that we bring in and the shows that we put on, and it's bloody top class. I think if you asked anyone involved with New South Wales wrestling, they'd agree with me. And yeah, look, it is what it is. If they're not talking about us, so be it. We'll just keep doing our thing and having our fun, man.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, because like as unheralded as you are amongst like the wrestling media in Australia, you sell out Panthers for your big shows. You sell sell out your tours, and it's just like, well, really, what more do you want these guys to do? I mean, you should be recognizing the fact, and I know that there's guys like Dan Leonard who always sings IWA's praises about being one of the longest running. And like you'd be nearly probably one of the best attended professional wrestling companies in the country. And
aggregate fans, I think you'd be up there.
Yeah,
aggregate.
I was wondering, when you go on those tours, how many fans travel sort of with you to these different shows, or is it completely different shows, or do you come out some shows? Because I know mostly the promotions I work, they all sort of stay at their same venues. So you get those fans that are there every week. Well, I know I can get a rise out of that guy if I just do this and that. Do you have the same thing where like they travel around, or a group, say, maybe travel around?
Yeah, no, 100%. I'm not sure if there's any sort of group that we notice that sort of follows us along to the shows, but when you have a chat to some of these fans, like some of them, will come from, especially, for example, the Tamworth show. A lot of people travel for that show. That's a big show for us. There's 350, 400 people in the Tamworth Entertainment Centre, which is where the country music festivals are being held. And they travel from everywhere, man. We had people, because we did a spot show in Bulahdelah, and they remembered that agriculture show and came to the Tamworth show because, they were sold on the wrestling from Bulahdelah. So, and then those fans who come to Tamworth will travel to Newcastle and sort of in that New England area. So, like I can't think of any specific stories of fans traveling, with us, but you definitely people come to these shows and they hear about it, and they yeah, man, like there's some effort put in to come watch some shows because they've been sold on it the previous year, and that's a testament to all the guys involved.
Yeah, well, originally I'm a Wingham boy, so that sort of area, all those like Tamworth and Bulladella, like Taree, Port Macquarie, all of those areas are very familiar for me growing up, because when I played soccer as a kid, that's where you travel for all the games. So I would imagine they'd be like, oh, there's this on tonight at Tamworth, we might as well just stick around and go to the show.
And you know, guys from that area like yourself used to traveling, they love it. So it's just around the corner. It's just 2 hours away.
Yeah, well, if you don't travel, you don't get anything if you live around those areas. So, what are your plans for? I know you can't really plan much for the future at the moment, but is it more? Do you want to further your career sort of overseas, or is it a thing where and I ask this question a lot lately, is it a thing where you just want to build the local product as much as you can, and you don't really see a need to travel overseas?
Yeah, obviously, I'll answer that. Like, obviously, it's hard to travel by yourself overseas, and by hard I mean impossible. So unless you get given the golden ticket, we're pretty much here in Australia. But even if that wasn't the case, I've said this before, and I'll probably say it again. Like, I truly have so much fun being here in this country and contributing to this scene, that is at least the now goal. Like, I don't look too far into the future. I don't really have a long-term plan or long-term goals. At least for now, I'm confident in saying that I just want to stay here and contribute to the scene. You know, we're on the cusp of something pretty cool. I just think there's just something extra needed to sort of crack into that mainstream, if that makes sense. I don't know what that is, and I know there's a lot of promotions in Australia looking for it, to sort of, you know, move out of that underground territory and sort of appeal to a wider, you know, the widest possible audience. So I'm here for that. I'm here for that ride. I want to be, you know, a player in that game that sort of reaches towards that breakthrough moment in Australian professional wrestling, because I feel as if it's just around the corner.
So where did you break in your training? Was it with Nui Pro, House of Free Fighting, or was it
overseas? Funny enough.
Well, there you go.
Yep. Yeah. So I started overseas. Maybe that's why I don't want to go. No, I'm just joking. Yeah, I went to Black and Brave first up.
Okay.
In America. So again, my ignorance, I didn't really know that there was anything in Australia, and I had just finished playing rugby league here in Sydney. So I sort of saved up some money after that. I took a gap year from university, did a bit of traveling, and started training over there. Got a work and travel visa and moved over there, and yeah, sort of killed two birds with one stone by having my gap year by doing professional wrestling training. So yeah, it was like not a lot of people would do that, but that was my first stepping foot into a wrestling ring was overseas at Black and Brave.
So when you came back to Australia, how did you find the local products? Like, because I know, like, for me, I didn't even know there was really local wrestling until I just happened upon a Facebook ad for Riot City. And that's the only way, like, myself, and because I tell the story all the time, myself and Big Brady Marshall are good mates. And I happened to find out he was a wrestling fan. I saw an ad for Facebook saying a show was coming up. Said, "Do you want to come to the show?" 3 months later, we're training.
Yep.
So like, how did you find?
Pretty much the same thing. I remember I landed on a Tuesday from America and just literally typed into Facebook wrestling, and I'm pretty sure I'd noticed it was a sponsored link or sponsored ad. So kudos to IWA, because it was IWA show at Hornsby, which for those who don't know is probably 25 minutes from where I was living at the time. So my eyes lit up. I was like, oh, awesome. And I had a look through all the Facebook details and saw all the the good content they were putting out, and I was like, wow, cool. I've been to the Hornsby RSL before. I know that's a genuine venue. Like this is it's an auditorium. Like, you know what I mean? I was first of all intrigued and excited. So I did the right thing and sent the message. I didn't know anyone. Sent the message through to the page, just sort of hoping whoever was behind it would see it and respond. And they did, and allowed me to come help out with the ring. And I think I was under the ring tightening some of the cables when they sort of just looked at me and said, all right, well, you get a chance. Like, you're on the show tonight. And
oh, wow.
Yeah. Got put in a singles, turned into a triple threat. And we worked, me, Randall, Kai Drake, Hornsby RSL. We worked pretty well together. It was a pretty good match. And they want to be back since then.
That's a funny, like Kai, because I think Kai started overseas as well.
Yeah.
When he first started training.
Was he Lance Storm?
I think so, yeah. Because I saw him not long after he'd gotten back from there. He worked a Venom Pro Wrestling show up here. And he was asking me, oh, who in like down in Sydney should I be like going to train? Right. And I'm like, well, do you know Concrete Davidson? He's like, no, who's that? I'm like, oh, how do you, what are you doing? I'm like UE Pro, PWA, they're your training places. Go and see those guys. Get yourself. But yeah, it's just, it amazes me.
It's funny how that works. Yeah, it's just.
It amazes me how like Australian wrestling fans, and I'm talking like Australian fans of wrestling who watch AEW, WWE, that don't know that there are local shows on pretty much every weekend around the country when we're not all locked indoors wearing masks. But
yeah. That's the goal. The goal is to break through to them and then prove to them like, hey, like this is pretty bloody good too. You know what I mean? Like it's, if not better. So
yeah,
especially to be there live.
Yeah, I've had the talk so many times with like Chris Fresh and that, like we can get like 8,000 to a local, like a WWE house show in like why can't we at least get 1,000 of those people to come and see what we're doing here? Because I would put us up against those shows in terms of wrestling quality. And now, especially now in terms of production, the production of most promotions now is so on par to what probably a house show would be doing, even though they're not in the big arenas. There's still like 99% of shows now all have your Titantrons. They all have your lights. They all have your smoke. They all have an entrance. It's all like when you first started, there was only, when I first started nearly 10 years ago, there wasn't that many guys or promotions around that had that sort of stuff. Like they had like a basic set and they had a little smoke machine, and there was one guy with a speaker and a turntable playing the songs, and that was the limit to their production. And I think that's what attracted myself and Brody Marshall to RCW at the time, because they had their little Titantron, they had a set, they had the proper sound, they had live commentary, which I guess is a bit of a, like, some people like it, some people hate it. It's a sort of a thing. Personally, I don't mind it, because as someone who was like came in as a fan, I like the fact that when I'm sitting in a live show, I'm getting that commentary sound that I was getting when I was watching WWE, and that I guess as I got on, like, to grow more as a independent wrestling fan, I could do without it. But before, like, coming into it, I'm like, great, because these guys are telling me the background of the wrestlers that are coming out. They're telling me, they're catching me up on the feuds. They're catching me, they're not, there's no highlight packages or anything out. They're catching me up on the feuds that are going on. Or they're telling me why this guy is fighting this guy. They're telling me that this guy is a #1 contender and he needs to win this match to get his final shot at the champion.
That's right.
That sort of stuff. So as much as I know that some wrestlers don't like it, I think in some places it's important to help introduce those new fans to your product.
Yeah, 100%. It's completely contextual, and people can have their, you know, their passionate opinions about it. You know, again, I'm going to mention it again. Throw your opinions out whenever you want, but like, you know, some shows will not use it for obvious reasons, and other shows will use it because there are reasons that they sort of have to use it. Like you said, like there's probably a lot of people who, you know, come to a show for the first time. The whole crowd could be coming to your show for the first time, for all you know.
Yeah.
And if they don't know what's going on, you know, obviously it's up to the wrestlers to tell that story, but, you know, why not give them a helping hand and help them understand? You might have someone who's never seen wrestling before, and they need to understand the rules. They need to understand what the goal is for each wrestler and how to win a match, perhaps. So, you know, again, it is up to the wrestlers to tell that story, but, you know, commentary can help. It can help. It helps in those instances, for example, I think, anyway, just my opinion.
And not only that, like, I know you guys at IWA have one of my favorite humans in the world, Ed Locke.
Yep.
Doing a
Perfect
lot of
description.
Doing a lot of,
Yep.
He's such a nice guy.
He's the nicest guy in wrestling. Yep.
How good is it having sort of, I'll call it an old head like that around to, because like, talk about a fountain of knowledge. So you go to him and go, like, I need a finish for this. What do you think? Well, back in blah, blah, we did this. You're like, that's a brilliant idea. Let's go for it.
Yeah, he's an encyclopedia in that sense, but also just an encyclopedia on how to sort of conduct yourself in the wrestling environment when it's just us workers at the show. He's an absolutely stand-up human being, first and foremost. So I think anyone who's ever met him, like yourself, just can't speak any more highly of Ed Locke. And it's almost become just an honor to have him there calling your matches. Like we're sort of a bit, I guess, I feel as if I'm taking the piss if I say enamored whilst I'm performing in the ring. But sometimes when I'm in the ring and I'll hear a line or two and I'll look over and just sort of, you know, smile to myself, if that makes sense, which sounds a bit goofy, but yeah, it is really cool to have him involved because he's always involved, man. Like he comes on all the tours, he's there, he travels with us, you know, hangs out with us. It's just an absolute pleasure to be around. Yeah.
He is one of my bucket list guests to have on the show. And when Rig got him for his, I messaged Rig and I was like, you son of a bitch. He's like, well, I'm around him all the time.
I think he cornered him at one of the shows and said, you're not allowed to leave the room.
Yeah, he's hard to catch. He's a hard man to catch. And that's why I haven't had him on. Because it's just, I think I messaged him a while ago. He's like, oh, in the new year, I know what that's code for. I'm like, okay, buddy, that's cool. I understand completely.
I'll put in a good word.
I wonder if it is just the fact that he's an old school sort of guy where he doesn't really want to talk about I don't know. Yeah, do you know what I mean?
That's definitely a possibility. I don't want to speak for him, but I can, if that is, you know, on his mind, I can see that. I can see that. Yeah. And
it's kind of like there's some of the thing with those guys that I do respect, and I won't harp on it. Like I wanted to have Ugg on the show, but I was like, I don't want to ruin the gimmick.
Yeah. No, that's one gimmick which needs to be protected, in my opinion. I think he's done a pretty good job of that. Yeah,
he's done a very good job. Speaking of like guys like Ugg and that sort of thing, the younger guys you've got at the moment in I guess in New South Wales, who do you see in the next like 5 years to be? Because you've got to, like, guys like Bonza and Moretti and all that, they've been around for, there's a whole new crop coming up. Who do you guys see? I guess like yourself and Sam Osborne, of course, is now just taken sort of that extra step up with that PWWA championship win. Yeah, who are the guys sort of underneath Sam now that you can see coming through?
I guess the last bit of that question sort of makes me feel a bit silly for saying this. Never, I was the whole time I was thinking Will Keatis. He's definitely not underneath us.
No.
or Sam or anyone. But I just think from the respect of where he's come from, and it's an old wrestling cliche, but when you scratch and claw for everything that you get, Will Ketis is that guy. Just from where he started and where he is now, it's literally night and day. So I think he is on the precipice of going to that level. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Other guys I can talk about, Dazza, for example, in Newcastle, who for the longest time, and he's been wrestling 2 or 3 years, he's been one of the most over characters in any town, anywhere, and especially in Newcastle now, because he's had the chance to build up that relationship with the audience. And someone else like Jimmy Townsend, who was rocking and rolling with the schoolboy character and shifted gears right now, another evolution of his character. If there's anyone who's picked up, storytelling and psychology quicker than him, I don't know who they are.
And his change too had to be a scary one for him, because that prefix gimmick was so over. That schoolboy, like no one kicks out of the schoolboy, that was so over. And to be like, I want to try something else new, that is so brave.
Yeah, and it has to be commended. It's like you said, the schoolboy gimmick was so over, but things sometimes, I guess, have their run. And with the schoolboy gimmick,
what are you going to
do? You can push it for as long as you can, but at the end of the day, the crowd knows that, hey man, you're only in school for so long, and now you're looking a bit older. Like, what's going on?
Yeah, you've got grey hair, mate. You're not a schoolboy anymore.
He'll be fine. He'll be fine. He knows exactly what he's doing.
So those guys, Will Ketis as well. The stuff he's doing, he's been doing the Goober report for a while.
Yep.
But the stuff he's doing now, where he's incorporated like Cherry into the gimmick, and that sort of thing, it's so very good, and just
brilliant.
Because really the only stuff I get to see of Sydney at the moment is like PWA on Fight, and just to see the fact that I love the fact that he stays in that the whole time. He stays in that because a lot of people, and I say it all the time, a lot of people, they have their gimmick and it's a great gimmick, and then the bell rings and then that gimmick goes away and they become wrestler. Whereas he doesn't really do that. He stays in that sort of that mindset for the whole way. It's so how hard is it for you to, or is it hard for you to sort of maintain the character while also doing the work?
No, look, that's the easiest part of wrestling for me, is because I listen to those old timers sort of talk about when you're out there, it's 110% real. And for me, that's the mentality that you go out there with. Like, that's always been in me from day dot. Thankfully, I haven't had to force that or fake any of that. When I'm in the zone, like when you cross the curtain, like, it's obviously in one half of your brain you're thinking about what you've planned to do, but the other half of your brain, which is the performance side of it, you need to know how to portray to the audience that your goal to win the match, it means absolutely everything to you, and you'll do what your character would do to the best of my character's abilities. So that's, to be honest, that's easy as for me, because I don't know what it is. I often talk about with my girlfriend, for example, who doesn't, isn't involved with wrestling at all, and she's just like, how do you like, how is that even possible? And I can't explain it. Like, it just is what it is. I just go out there and I'm this person now. And that's that.
I get from my wife, how do you put up with them saying such mean stuff to you? I was like, well, I'm encouraging them to do it.
I hope it's not real.
I'd be upset if they didn't say anything. If they were just quiet, then I wouldn't know. I'd know I'm not doing my job right. But I've always wondered it, because for me, it's not a problem so much for me, because I'm not out there taking the bumps. My whole job is to work the crowd for the whole match. So I don't really have to think about, sometimes I have to think about what's coming up. But most of the time, it's just me, like, not pretending, but when you're through that curtains that my
Yeah.
client is going to win, and I'm totally focused on that happening. And I'm
That's
telling
right.
telling the crowd to shut up when they're chanting for the baby face and
Yeah.
all of that thing would just come naturally to me if that's what I was in that position to do.
Yeah, that's 100% right. I think the bumps even might help me in that respect because you are getting physically punished. It just makes you feel as if you're in a contest even more. So that just sort of makes it easier to sort of get in that mode.
So who are the people you're really looking forward to working over the next, say, 12 months?
Well, one, for example, would have been Royce Chambers, which would have been on next week. Again, I hate to harp on the negative. It is postponed. Not cancelled, postponed.
He sort of got half of your old gimmick, mate, with the bucket hat and the hair.
Yeah. No, I love it. No, 100%. Like, you can't miss that guy. He's everywhere at the moment. So I was really looking forward to mixing it up because it definitely would have been a clash of styles, what he does and what I do, and I was really looking forward to testing that out and seeing what we could come up with in there. So that's disappointing, but it will happen soon.
Sometimes those mix of styles make amazing matches.
100%. No, it definitely would have. I think it would have been a great match. That's why I'm really disappointed. It's not happening next Friday. It's happening soon, not next Friday. Just keep again, fingers crossed. I don't know. Off the top of my head, I think. Look, we mentioned Chris Basso before. I think he's someone that I'd like to. I'd like to work. Someone like Mikey Broderick. I have a sort of penchant, infatuation with those sort of old school sort of wrestlers who, I guess it's more. For me, it's always more about the story than it is the moves, and I don't want to harp on that. It's not. I don't want to go into that, but it's I think there are some guys out there that I would love to personally learn off of, especially more experienced guys who have been there and done that, and mix it up with them and get in the ring with them. So some of those guys are the ones that come to mind. Rocky Monero, for example, we mentioned him before. Keeping an eye on what he's doing in Adelaide and Melbourne. So there's a lot of guys who I think, similar styles, but also different style. I just want to tell different stories with different guys and sort of increase, increase the awareness for IWA, because I think it deserves that, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, and when you talk about stories over the moves, mate, you're preaching to the choir when you're talking to me about that, because that's the stuff I love. We had a match this weekend, and the guy, one of the guys I manage at Venom, he's like a 5-match rookie, so he's really green, but he has so much, it's like a diamond in the rough. I guess is the way I could describe him. And the guy who was working had all these spots he wanted to do and all this. I was like, let's just cut all of that stuff out. He's like, why? It's because if you're not telling the right story, none of that stuff's going to matter. Because there was some sequence where he wanted to do like a super kick off. I'm like, after the second super kick, mate, no one's going to give a shit about it.
Yeah, especially for someone new that they don't know. That it won't mean much to the audience. Yeah. You got to introduce who they are as a person first, as a character first, and then the moves will come off the back of that. But yeah, you're right. It is what it is. Wrestling, can be whatever it wants to be, is the right way of saying it. But just the way preaching the choir, I agree. But yeah,
I'm always the mindset is like, I would rather do things once or twice for big impact and do it even though I could maybe do it 6 times, because every time you do it, there's diminishing returns.
Yeah, simple economics, right?
Yeah. So why would you keep going back to that well? That's like,
why would I exert my energy to do things 5 times when I can do it once and it lasts 2 minutes?
Well, it's like, well, the guy was like, oh, I want to put my finisher and let him kick out of it. And I was like, why would you want to do that? Why would you want to hurt your finisher to start with? I said, just have you nearly hit it. Just nearly hit it 3 times or 2 times. Then when you do actually hit it, it means something. And we got to the back after it. And he goes, that was one of the easiest matches I've worked for, like the bigger responses we've gotten. I said, because you teased. It's thinking about stuff.
Hopefully that was the light bulb moment then.
Yeah. It's just, and the good thing is when you can work with younger guys like that and they have those light bulb moments, and you can see the next time they're like, oh, maybe I don't do that amazing sequence. I know I can do it, but it's probably not the place for it.
Yeah.
So, we can't plug the next show because we don't know when it's coming up, but
we don't.
I want to thank you for coming on, mate. And I know you're not on Twitter. I know you're not on Twitter anymore, but if people want to follow, also, how can we watch the IWA shows? Because you are on streaming, aren't you, in some way, shape, or form?
IWA rewind.com. IWA rewind, all one word. That's obvious. It's the URL. .com, possibly .au, I'm assuming, but if you type it in, I'm sure you'll find it. Streaming service on there. Rip into it because there's a lot of good stuff, a lot of old stuff as well. Like I'm sure there's still fans out there who want to, learn the history of pro wrestling in this country, and this is just one part of it. So there's a lot of good stuff on there. Give it a look.
Awesome, man. And how can they follow you on whatever socials you're on at the moment?
I still Twitter was only recent. I just had enough of it the other day. So I would have said that if you had me last week pretty much. Golden Boot Pro, changed the gimmick up a little bit, and that's now my Instagram handle. So I'm on there every now and then. And if you type in Jackson Kelly on Facebook, I will have a page which I use to update all the shows and all the Facebook events, so you can keep up when it does come up again, because I'm sure we're going to be doing shows soon. All the information will be on there. So Golden Boot Pro, Jackson Kelly on Facebook.
And
wrestler merch too. Sorry.
No, you're right. No, plug away.
Wrestler merch. I'm on Wrestler merch. Thanks to the team at Wrestler merch. So Jackson Kelly at Wrestler merch. Go buy a t-shirt.
There you go. Now, if you do see IWA coming up in your town, go and check him out. Jackson Kelly is, I said it at the start of the show, I'll say it now, he's one of the uncovered gems in Australian wrestling. I hope to see more on, because I know Nui Pro are working on something as well with their streaming. So hopefully we'll get to see more on the screens when we can't actually get out to you for your shows. But thank you very much for coming on, mate.
For the screen, right? The face is made for the screen, surely.
Well, some of us don't have that luck. Thanks, mate.
Thank you, Todd. Thank you.
Once again, big thanks to my guest, Jackson Kelly. Thank you so much for coming on, mate. And what I said before in the open, and what I say right now, go and check out IWA On Demand. Such an underrated promotion. Don't know why. After you see some of their shows, you'll understand exactly what I'm talking about. Great roster, great wrestlers. Some of the wrestlers you don't see anywhere else are on IWA, like Chris Abbott, like Randall. And please do go and check them out and support them. They are one of the best feds in the country that nobody really talks about, and they should be talking about them. If you haven't already, though, guys, make sure you subscribe to WRA. It's free. You can do it on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere you get your podcast from. We're there. If you go on Apple Pods, give us a rating and review, 5 stars. That sort of deal helps get inside more ears and all of that stuff in the whole algorithm dealio. So you know me. I'm very good with the old technical terminology. If you subscribe on YouTube, make sure you hit the notifications, because then you'll see when a show comes up. As soon as the show comes up, you'll get your notification that it's going live, or it's whatever happens. to it. I'm so dumb when it comes to this stuff. Share the show, spread the word about professional wrestling in this country like we do every week right here on Wrestle Radio Australia. Also make sure you like us on Facebook. Just search out Wrestle Radio Australia, and on Twitter and Instagram at Wrestle Radio AU, or me personally at Beast Eastman. If you want to support the local industry, please do subscribe to one of the services, or as many of the services as you can going around. Of course, we talked about IWA On Demand, MCW On Demand. There's now I've just drawn a blank completely. The Australian Wrestling Network. Go and check those guys out, because they've got some great back catalog. The Australian Wrestling Network, great back catalog of Australian wrestling. So do go and check those guys out. Also, YouTube has the Wrestle Rampage put up a couple of these shows on there. I know the Wrestle Rampage is going to be putting up this show that just happened this past weekend. Will be going up on YouTube soon, if not already. So go and check that out. That's one I'm really looking forward to seeing, because they had some really good matches lined up on that one. Istria and Graham will be a great match. I cannot wait to see that. Also, Lily Blaze takes on Delta Brady in a match that you would not see very often, because you don't really see Riot City Wrestling and Wrestle Rampage cross streams too often. So it'll be good to see those two go up against each other. Also, on YouTube, Wrestle Radio Australia. Oh, yeah, we're on YouTube. Yeah. But also Riot City Wrestling are on YouTube as well, so go and subscribe to that, because as soon as their shows are up, pretty much a couple of days after, they're up on their YouTube channel for free. So go and do that. Follow them as much as you can. But if you really want to support, like monetarily to wrestling in Australia, wrestler merch is a great way to do that, because you can buy t-shirts and that sort of stuff from your favorite wrestlers. Money goes to the wrestlers, helps support them in their endeavors, and helps really, because a lot of them use the money that they get to get new tights, to improve their all over like look and all of that stuff. It just helps them, and that's what we're all about here at Wrestle Radio Australia, is just trying to help the Australian wrestling industry as much as we possibly can. We have the new designs for Wrestle Radio Australia up on redbubble.com. All the proceeds that go from the sale of shirts and all the other stuff you can get on Redbubble, they all go to Gotcha for Life and Beyond Blue, two charities that we really do support here at Wrestle Radio Australia. If you know anything about the show, you know how much we've been affected by men's health issues and men's mental health and all of that sort of stuff. And Gotcha for Life and Beyond Blue do a lot to help combat this epidemic of mental health in the Australian men, and well, just all over, I guess. So that's why we do it. We don't really I'm not really looking to make money on this show, if that makes any sense, which is sort of stupid, because everything else in wrestling is geared towards making money, and I'm here just giving it away. So there we go. Anyway, that is it for this week here at Wrestle Radio Australia. I'm not too sure who we'll have on next week. Could be one that I've already had in the can, could be somebody else, who knows. It's a whole crapshoot at the moment, because everyone's locked down. And once again, if you're locked down wherever you are, if you're up here in Brisbane, you're in New South Wales lockdown, you're sort of coming out of it, I think, in Victoria at the moment. The mask restrictions are getting lifted and all that sort of gear. Please do look after yourselves. Just keep our heads down. Let's get through this so we can get back to doing what we love, and that is watching, performing, doing professional wrestling in Australia. Wear a mask, wash your hands, social distance. Until next week, I'm Todd Eastman. That's my opinion. You're entitled to it. We'll see you next week right here on Wrestle Radio Australia.
Sweet, oh, yeah, yeah. Too sweet, put your fangs up. Too sweet, pour another cup. Let's be busy 24